Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. In this video, we will learn about thematic analysis, also known as thematic analysis. Thematic analysis is one of the methods used in theoretical studies or qualitative research. Of course, in this specific type of qualitative analysis, the primary purpose is to carefully analyze written words or detailed interviews that are being conducted, or perhaps the available media, in order to create certain thematic headings or specific topics from these words. Usually this involves a very deep dive into the content. Some points are grouped together and a specific heading is created for these topics. Then the results are interpreted based on these headings or topics that have been collected. For example, choosing appropriate topics to determine the level of patient satisfaction regarding care, medical in a particular hospital. For example, conducting a thematic analysis of these interviews with patients. Of course, to carry out such an analysis, there are steps that must be followed. First, reading the interviews that have been conducted and becoming more familiar with them. In terms of the content of these interviews, sometimes you may need to translate some of them. For example, if they are in a different language, you would translate them into Arabic or vice versa. That's right, from Arabic to other languages, to use them in statistical methods or appropriate analytical tools later on. After you become familiar with the content of these interviews, you create initial codes, also known as labels. Preliminary labels are assigned to some of the points that were mentioned, and after that, once the initial codes are created, we move on to the next stage, which is trying to group similar codes together to form themes. After these themes are created, they are reviewed to determine how appropriate they are for the research topic. Once these specific themes have been thoroughly reviewed and carefully verified, these headings are clearly defined and established, and then they are given more comprehensive and broader classification codes or more comprehensive titles than before. Then the report is written at the end. These are the basic steps for conducting thematic analysis. For example, if we consider a specific case as an illustration, the unique and challenging experiences faced by pregnant women during the global COVID-19 illness pandemic. In order to properly carry out such a thematic analysis, as a specific illustrative example, 10 pregnant women are interviewed during the COVID-19 pandemic, and every detail and piece of information they provide during the interview is collected. The person becomes familiar or more acquainted with the contents of these interviews. Then various codes are developed for the particular points and concerns that they have previously mentioned, such as a fear of becoming infected, feeling deeply lonely, or a general sense of not fully understanding the situation. Telemedicine. So some of the points they mentioned during the interview are then taken, grouped together, and used to create specific themes for them, such as their feelings during the COVID-19 illness, the effectiveness of modern technological devices. After these themes are created, they are reviewed to ensure their relevance to the research topic. Once confirmed, each theme is defined and a final title can be assigned to each group of codes. In the end, the research is written up. Of course, this type of research can be applied in health fields as well as in non-health fields. For example, understanding the overall degree of general customer satisfaction regarding the moral and ethical business practices of banks involves conducting in-depth interviews with a diverse group of individual customers who are active participants in this specific research study. Conducting interviews with them, then reading these interviews to understand their content. Assigning initial codes to some of the points they mentioned, such as credibility, lack of understanding of points related to Sharia compliance, security. So first, a set of initial codes is meticulously developed and established, and then the similar codes are systematically organized and categorized into much broader overarching themes. For example, the theme of a lack of awareness includes several fundamental codes, while personal satisfaction includes a variety of different codes. and the concepts of trust and transparency contain other distinct codes. These carefully selected themes are then thoroughly reviewed and checked to see how well they align with the specific research topic. And finally, these themes are clearly defined and finalized. And in the end, the research related to this type of dimension is written, as I mentioned to you, this type of thematic analysis. It is used only with theoretical or qualitative studies, qualitative research, and is considered one of the common methods in analysis. Usually, after this information is collected, there are various specialized software tools and digital platforms that can be effectively utilized to help researchers conduct these detailed qualitative analyses, allowing them to systematically create initial sets of codes or to strategically group several related codes together into broader categories for better organization. However, when using these tools or programs, the researcher must also ensure accuracy because these are, in the end, certificates from these programs, especially when using artificial intelligence tools. So it is necessary to make sure how appropriate these codes are with each other and how suitable these titles are with the title of the research. Of course, among the most well-known of these programs is NVivo, which is considered one of the supporting tools, and there are also many other programs related to artificial intelligence tools. Thank you all.